It's a Mini. Well done. But what makes this so special is that this month at Manor Park Classics, we have a Mark III Mini Cooper S. And not just any incredibly rare Mark III Mini Cooper S, because this is believed to be the final one ever registered in Britain. So the story of the Mini Cooper is eventful, but it has so many brilliant name checks within it. So the Mini originally was launched in 1959 as the Austin 7 and Morris Mini Minor with its little 850cc A-series and about 34 brake horsepower. It wasn't designed to be a performance machine, and in fact it had its engine detuned from 948cc to 848cc to lower the power to mean that they couldn't hit over 90 miles per hour. It sounds mad to say today, but the design team at BMC, including the great Alec Izagonis of course, thought that a car of this size going that quickly was potentially a danger. So they reduced the power output by reducing the capacity and launched it as the Mini 850. Once the car was launched, a load of press cars were of course given out, and one of those press cars was given to a man named John Cooper, who then decided to take it from Britain down to Milan, to Monza in particular, for the Italian Grand Prix that September. And then everyone came and looked at it and thought it was a weird looking little car, and it had quirky engineering with its transverse engine and rubber suspension. And everyone kind of looked at it and pondered, and then wondered how good it was to drive. These are Formula One drivers at the end of the day. It was then borrowed by a number of people who went trashing it around Milan, around the country, around the hills near Monza, and came back proclaiming this to be the future of motoring. 2 years later, the Mini Cooper was launched, tuned up with 997 cc's and about 55 brake horsepower, as well as disc brakes on the front, to take it racing. Because what else would you do with a fabulously engineered little car like this than thrash it around a track? So that's what the Mini Cooper was there to give us. But the original Mini Cooper, if I'm quite honest, wasn't all that. It didn't quite make enough power, and its brakes, even though they were discs, weren't up to much. So over the next few years, the Mini Cooper was improved a little bit, and we saw the launch in 1963 of the Mini Cooper S. The first Mini to have over a litre in capacity, 1071cc to be exact. But over the next couple of years, they decided that, again, wasn't quite enough. And in 1964, they gave us the Mini Cooper 970S and the Mini Cooper 1275S. This car is a 1275, but the reason those two cars were launched together was because some people wanted to take them circuit racing and other people wanted to take them rallying. And so in order to fit the Mini into the under a litre category in circuit racing, they engineered the 970, which may have been a smaller capacity than they could have gotten away with, but it meant that it was an absolute barnstormer of an engine. Very, very short stroke with a big bore, which meant that it could absolutely rev its nuts off and make 70 brake horsepower. 70 brake horsepower from 970cc in 1964, thanks to its twin carburetors and mad cylinder head on it. So the Mini Cooper 970S was a fire breather, but the 1275 was that bit more powerful. It had the extra stroke to take it to 1275, and it made 76 brake horsepower. The 1275 was more tractable, and in the end, the 970 was discontinued, leaving just this style of really incredibly fast Mini. So 76 brake horsepower doesn't sound like a hell of a lot, but you've got to remember that Minis weigh 600 and something kilograms. So in a car that is 10 feet and a quarter of an inch long, that 1275cc engine with its mad twin carbs and mad cylinder head, as I've said, makes it absolutely fly. Then you have the basic Mini suspension with its incredibly hard rubber system, and it's also independent all round, of course. Transverse engine, front wheel drive, all incredibly modern in 1959, and set the template for what everybody else did. This was in many ways the first truly modern car in terms of its layout. But of course, this is a Mini Cooper S. We're standing around here talking about it when all it really wants to do is be driven. So let's go and drive it. When I say they put a 1275cc engine in it, I don't mean they just put a big engine in it. I mean they put a big engine in it and tuned it to the rooftops. Not only does it have twin carburetors and a mad cylinder head, but the Mini Cooper S engines have so many incredibly expensive little performance bits that made them a nightmare for the warranty team, but made them absolutely fly on the road. You really have to watch your speed in a Mini Cooper S. And the first thing that is so overwhelming is the straight cut gearbox. Now, not all Mini Cooper S's had straight cut gearbox. It was actually a factory option. A lot of people think it was aftermarket, but you could option them with straight cut gearboxes just to make it more of a racing car and give you that fantastic whine all the time. And then you get the burble of that wonderful, really, really torquey, low revving A-series engine beneath it. Little tiny pedals, fantastic for heel and toe. And just an absolute switch of a throttle pedal. You so much as look at it, and it absolutely flies away. 76 brake horsepower, never felt so quick. And so to the Mini's wonderful handling, and it's so direct with this big steering wheel and rack and pinion steering. But unlike the standard rubber suspension and telescopic shock absorbers of earlier Minis, this being a Cooper S, it has Hydrolastic, which was engineered by Dr. Alex Moulton and first fitted to the 1100 in 1962, but it eventually went onto the Mini like it always should have done. And I'm falling out of my seat. And Hydrolastic, the way it works is that you have a rubber cone within a fluid-filled sphere. The fluid performs the damping and also controls the ride height of the car. And so it's interlinked front to rear. So that corner is linked to that rear corner, and the same on the other side, front to back. So it has independent suspension all round, but every corner talks to each other. And that means that when you accelerate and brake, the car doesn't pitch and dive like it would otherwise. And similarly, when you're going along a road and you're just very comfortably lolloping along, it has this almost magic carpet quality to the ride that you just don't expect from a Mini, because Minis have this reputation for being super hard, but not on a Hydrolastic one. Now, the rubber cones do still exist and they perform the springing, and the cones mean that when you are just going along a straight line, as I've said, it can be nice and comfortable, but they have a very progressive spring rate, so that when eventually you do dive it into a corner, like you always should with a Mini, it means it really hardens up and becomes a racing car. Now, a lot of people are a bit scared of Hydrolastic, and I don't understand why. It was proven to be dependable and reliable. In fact, all of the Monte Carlo winning Minis used Hydrolastic suspension. And you just lost my gaze then slightly, because someone was standing at the side of the road smiling their head off to this wonderful little car with its whiny gearbox. So Hydrolastic is enormously quirky, and it gives this car a feel it just doesn't deserve. It has a floatiness in a straight line, but this immense grip as you go into the corners. I'd have a Hydrolastic Mini any day. We've been over the engine, and the final thing to mention is the gearbox. Now, we have talked about it being straight cut already. I had to give it a bit going past the guy who was smiling. But it's so eager to go. But the gearbox, as I said, early Minis had what they called a magic wand gear change, where you had this big lever going into the bulkhead down to the sump-mounted gearbox, and it gave it a really sloppy gear change, if I'm honest. But the Mini Coopers got given what they called the remote change, which is this big solid lump of metal under the car, which acts as a bit of an engine steady, to be honest. And it also moves the gear change out to the floor where it really should be, and gives it this really precise, very, very snickety, short throw gear change. It's an absolute joy to use. So we can just click into fourth gear and then back down into third with a bit of rev matching. Absolutely wonderful little car. So if you're interested in driving around in this little thing and having as much of a smile on your face as I am, then please do go and check it out on the website.